Welcome to Stories of a Volunteeraholic.
I'm your host today, Amy Thiemeier, author of Stories of a Volunteeraholic, and I have a really good friend of mine with me today, Josh Wheldon. Josh.
Yeah, I'm here.
He is a volunteeraholic just like me. And so my first question is, did you grow up volunteering? Like, was it modeled by your parents?
Yeah, I knew that was going to be a question, so I was actually thinking about that on the way here. I think yes, right? So it stems back. I was thinking, like, when did I first learn to volunteer? And I think it goes back to counting the offering at church, right? So I wasn't a deacon because I was a little kid, but they'd be like, take the offering, you take the offering, and then we go in and count. And like that was volunteering, and then setting up for the community meal and doing things like that with the church. So it's like a volunteering from another lens, right? So I was like, when did I do something and not get paid for it? So I was thinking, when I was a little kid, that's what it was, right? And then like leaving the military, I've done all kinds of things that we'll talk about, I'm sure.
Yeah.
But,
yeah. So I think, so my next question is, like, through your life span so far, has there been like a favorite project that you've been involved in as a volunteer, or that you've seen and was like, oh man, that was a lot of fun, we did some really good stuff?
Yeah, there's so many organizations, it's hard to say which one's better or what the favorite thing is. I think they're all fun, right?
Okay, so like, I think this is about you. It's not about like the qualifying the event. It's the just, I loved it when I took veterans fishing. We had the greatest time, or like as from the experience of the volunteer.
Yeah, and that's so like I've been able to be a part of so many different things that like that's like reminding myself I am the end state user, right? I am the veteran. It is my family that comes out and engages with the community. I think my favorite one I would have to say is I don't even know who it was with, what organization, but I could tell you what we were doing. I was with Alfie at the Ording Soldier Cemetery. So when they were repurposing the soldier cemetery on the hill, we went up there and we were cleaning headstones. And Alfie was the former director of the Washington State Department of Veterans Affairs. And we were scrubbing headstones with some chemical spray, and we weren't supposed to touch it and all this, and this stuff had to sit there. And we were used like a scrub brush, and we were scrubbing headstones. So at the soldiers' home, or the soldier cemetery there in Ording, there's some Medal of Honor recipients, and some of those headstones are very, very old. And we were scrubbing those headstones, and we must have been out there for 3 or 4 hours. It was like a mundane task. It just kept going. Like the headstones all of them were dirty, and we were trying to clean them all. And one thing that she told me when we were doing that was, when we're scrubbing them, we have to remember to say the name of the service member that's buried there. And like that, I think it was a decade ago. It was a long time ago. And now every time I do anything, it's like, you got to say the name. So like remembering that, remembering why we're there, the sacrifices that were made by their family, by our family, even being there, scrubbing the thing or laying a wreath for a penny, or the honor project, or whatever I'm doing. It's like remembering why I'm there. So like that was like a wild service project. I don't even remember who it was with, but I know Alfie told me that. And so now every time that I do something kind of memorializing somebody or giving back for a specific person, I think about that. The last time the person's name was said, you don't know what it might be. So keeping that, we will remember kind of
I love that.
That
I
line.
think that's really important to me too, because I do a lot with, or I've done a lot over the years with Wear Blue, Run to Remember, and I think saying the name is super powerful, both for us and for them.
Yeah.
And for the kids that are around us. You have sons. I have children, grandsons. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I think it's important because now we're the models.
Yeah.
You know, now
and it's like a generational thing. She taught me, I'm teaching my kids or any kids that I'm with, like just teaching that that history, I guess, because that's what it is history. Mm-hmm. So
I think that's wonderful. Okay, so do you have any projects right now that you're working on in the nonprofit space?
yeah, so that's when it's hard, right? Like Josh is the volunteer, so yeah, there's probably 4 or 5 different things that are that are in the works. But like what I'm working on specifically, no, I don't think I do. Other than so I am the chaplain of the Puyallup VFW, right? So like that's an ongoing volunteerism. Mm-hmm. Just kind of talking to family members and being there for post members that need help. I would say I'm a mentor, an advocate to other people that want to volunteer, kind of just to teach people about how to get out and get involved. Those are like ongoing projects, but like specifically, I'm not like at the helm of one event, like take this on, you know?
Okay, so that's true, but I think you are on the helm of a program not housed in a nonprofit, but a program with an initiative. PNW Vets, I think, would fall. That's how I would describe it. I mean, this is just world according to Amy, right?
Yeah.
But I think the PNW Vets Facebook group and the meetings that are all up and down the I-5 corridor to get veterans and veterans service organizations working together in awareness, right?
Yeah. So yeah, we just had that. Just had a 2-year anniversary Wednesday night. So PNW Vets it's been a historic thing for over a decade. Community group that belongs to you as much as it belongs to me. I'm just the admin guy.
All right, but I would have to push back a little bit. I would say that you were a driving force in it, I would also say that would constitute volunteering. And let me further that. There's a story in my book that I talk about, like who modeled volunteering for me. My grandmother used to crochet blankets and toys for the kids at Mary Bridge Children's Hospital. She did it outside of a program or a nonprofit. She did it for years on her own. Nobody even knew, nobody knew. And then the nurses at Mary Bridge put her in for a City of Destiny award. And that was, as her family, it made sense. But now, as all the nonprofit stuff that I do and all the awards that I see out there, I actually feel like her, and I don't mean comparative superiority or anything like that, but I love that example and what that did for me to understand if you see a need, find a need, fill a need. And I think so I see her in you, I should say it that way. Yeah. That you saw a need and you filled a need. And I do feel like that is almost the truest form of volunteering.
Yeah. It's so when you were saying that about your grandparents, I was thinking my grandparents, they spent a lot of time at the Morton Senior Center. Now, I remember when I was a kid, I'd have to go up there and visit, and they would be at the senior center cooking meals or doing whatever. That was the place I went to play pool when they were doing whatever they were doing. But I guess they were volunteering. Little 8-year-old Josh didn't think about it as volunteering, you know?
Well, but you think of that generational mentoring, like spending time with people of different age brackets is something I feel like our country, and you could even say our world, but our country specifically has been pulled apart in all these different directions. And I feel like when we do things that are intergenerational, when somebody who's passionate about history is talking about history, it goes a lot longer, a lot more, and we need to rebuild the fabric of our communities. Yeah. And so I think you do that with PNW Vets. I think I see you doing that with Character Does Matter with the Travis Manion Foundation. I see you doing that as a chaplain.
Yeah.
I see you doing that in a lot of different capacities, and it's so important to our community right now as we need to. I hate using slogan words that are, build back again, make great, whatever. We just need to redevelop our community fabric.
Yeah, and that's the. I lost my dad when he was only 60 years old, right? So like this, it's funny because I'm up here. Well, besides you and Eddie Lowry and Tony and some of these other guys, I have friends that are my age, right? But I feel that the median age of my friends is like 76. Like here I am hanging out with these old dudes.
For the record, I'm not 76.
So it's interesting. I had this conversation just the other day, talking to guys from the VFW, guys and gals from the VFW, presenting about some benefits that they might be eligible for, their family could know about. And when I was doing that, I was thinking about afterwards, like the average age is probably like 80-ish years old. And here I am, 40 or 41, telling these guys about end of life or benefits with the VA. And they've been dealing with this stuff for twice my life. But a lot of them came up afterwards and told me like, hey, I've never heard that before. Thanks for sharing. And I think that that's one of the things about volunteering in a cross-generational kind of mindset is I just can't run in there and be like, hey, I'm taking over. This is my place now. Younger veterans are doing this. I need to have them in the conversation as this value add, as the change makers over time, and learn from them as much as I can. Because when they're gone, it's not like I'm just going to ring them up. Hey, Joe, what did you do in 1970 when you came home from Vietnam? I don't know. So listening to them now, being an active part of the conversation with them. Think of all the things really in the veteran world that have been done because of this older generation, right? So like the GI Bill, Voc Rehab, the burn pit registry, a whole bunch of different things that have came up because of these guys and gals that have been advocates. And now we look at them as the grandma and grandpa in the room. I really like that, learning from them, trying to figure out the mistakes along the way,
I think one of my biggest thing that I lean into, I say people of a more interesting age, is the stories.
Yeah.
It's the stories are what make history interesting, and I think it's the time. Like, and my dad is a golfer. And I didn't start golfing with my dad until about 10 years ago. And when you're 4.5 hours on, the greens, or 4 hours to play 18 holes or something, you hear all the stories. There's so many stories that I learned on the golf course with my dad that I never heard growing up, that I never heard as an adult. And I'm talking about his time of service in the Marine Corps. Field problems he did, but the truth, same go in the opposite direction. I don't tell my kids those stories and different things like that, and so I think it's a time. So I think, like you said, shooting pool, it's playing a game, it's hanging out, it's learning their lessons in life, their stories. I think we move in such a fast-paced environment these days that we don't realize we need to be where our feet is.
Yeah.
And really spend time with the people around us, whether it be our family or people at the Veteran Soldier Home or people at a community center or whatever.
Yeah. It's funny. Like I don't want to think about it as volunteering or whatever. It's just like life. I just go on. And so that's one of the things that people report. It's a report for the VFW is volunteer hours. So I'm like, dude, I'm not going to sit down every month and think about every time I helped somebody or went out of my way to do this. It's just life. I'm doing it as a kind person, being there for your friends and showing up when they ask you to come and help with something. So I was like, is it volunteering or is it? Well, it is.
Right. Now, I think
like, how do you chalk it up, you know?
I think that's really hard. And I've been lucky enough to where, like all my volunteering, I don't track hours. Yeah. And also then I know a lot of people get things confused with me because I work in the nonprofit space, and working is not volunteering.
Yep, exactly.
Even if it's doing service and different things like that. But I think part of me, the money side, banking, part of me understands that the tracking of hours has to do with the ability to write grants or the ability to tell a story. VFW members theoretically contribute 1.5 million service hours a year, and they want to be able to say that they can prove it based on logs. So I understand like the business problem of it, but I also, to your point, I come to one, this brings me joy, so I don't need it to be counted. But so it's that, and then, so I get it, but I don't like it, and I oftentimes don't participate in it.
Yeah.
Like I'm not counting.
The example of that, right? The buddy poppies at Fred Meyer. I'm sitting outside Fred Meyer. We're selling buddy poppies. Not selling, taking donations for a buddy poppy. And I'm not like, I went and did that for 6 hours in 2 days. Like, I already forgot about it when it comes Monday. Like, it just happened, you know? So, like, it was cool because, what was it, Veterans Day? At a establishment doing a fundraiser, right? And some VFW guys came in there and they're like, "Hey, Josh." I'm like, "Who? Hey." Hey. And then like I got to explain to somebody like, you know, that the buddy poppies for the VFW, that's actually $14 million in revenue the VFW gets every year from the buddy poppy drives. Like, it's in a little pamphlet. And so, like, if you actually read the pamphlet that goes with the buddy poppy, it, like, educates you on it, right? It's about, like, the people are like, oh, here you go. And then nobody really knows the meaning, you know? So it's cool that it's such a revenue source through donations to impact change. And it all goes towards the relief fund. So that relief fund is family calls up, having a hard time paying a bill, or I need a night in a hotel. Well, here you go. Here's some money. That relief fund is built through the buddy poppies. And, like, I have a buddy puppy tattooed on my wrist, you know?
Right.
Just because I think, like, just knowing the story behind it. And then the cross-generational thing. So I'd known somebody for a long time. And sitting there for a few hours, it came out that we have, like, the same history in kind of being around, working in the woods, doing northwest jobs and careers, you know, setting chokers and chasing and driving log trucks. Some of that stuff was my childhood. Like, I spent a lot of time in the woods. And this person, I never even knew that he knew anything about the culture of the timber industry. And so it was like, we've known each other for this long and we've never actually had this conversation. But it took sitting there to, like, completely get out of my mind all the veteran things, and I want to know you as, like, I want to know you as Amy. I don't want to know you as all the other things you do, but, like, to be able to have that conversation, it was through that volunteering and just sitting there, and then we kind of just started talking about something because of a shirt somebody was wearing, you know. So it's like, how do those conversations happen if you don't spend time with other people, you know?
Right. Well, and that's what I think. And then when we take it to mental health, they say the biggest contributor to suicide and mental health problems is isolation and loneliness. And they've identified that, but we have made hanging out sometimes unpopular or too complicated, or, you know. And I think volunteerism has an opportunity to be that safe space of reintegrating and having conversation.
Yeah. And it's like even in my own mind, thinking about volunteering, right? it doesn't have to be so much hard work and all this thing. It's not a huge project. It could just be spending time with somebody.
Yep.
You know, it's like, so I think there's like this common misconception of, oh, I need some volunteers. No, it's not like 100-hour project. I just need you to maybe write a thank you card. You know, like, so
Right.
it could be very simple.
Well, right, and I will say we're doing Christmas cards, and so it's just like I think Jackie did the flyer, and it should be on Facebook. So you write in your Christmas cards out. You do one to the soldier home in Bremerton, but you could use any address of any soldier home or any senior center, different things like that, and just reaching out, just doing one while you're doing your others.
Yeah.
And that's a
Yeah.
volunteer act.
It is. It's interesting. And I know that's one thing the military's, this volunteer service ribbon, VSM, I think is VSM. Well, there's something, but there's some ribbon they get for volunteering. So it was interesting. Like they hosted a 5K run. So that like the organizing and all the stuff behind that was a volunteer thing.
I think there's an hour's requirement. I don't remember because
Yeah.
my husband actually received that.
Yeah.
But what was funny is his commander, or there was a first sergeant, a first shirt that recommended that we look into it, and I ended up having to write most of it for them to then like finish it and submit it and stuff like that.
Yeah.
So he got it, and he did 1,500 hours of trail work behind First Creek Middle School, building mountain bike trails and skills park.
No, okay.
And so it was funny. I was doing something else with the Air Force, and somebody else had a volunteer service ribbon. And so I go up to him and said, "Officer, it's a commander." I'm like, "Hey, my husband has that same." And he looks at it and he goes, "That's not right. I don't have that ribbon." And I'm like, "Okay." Awkward. Thank you so much. Like, I thought this was going to be this building. Like, what type of volunteer are you?
Yeah.
No, it was not.
Yeah.
But yeah, but I'm glad that they are doing that, because I think you build as a character so much as a person when you're volunteering, and so to have a ribbon, I think is really cool.
Yeah. It's you brought up PNW Vets. Somebody asked me on Wednesday night. They said, "Like, where does the money go?" Wednesday night we had our second anniversary dinner, little potluck party. I said, "Money for what?" I said, "Well, the shirts. I see everybody wearing a cool shirt, PNW Vets shirt." I said, "Oh, that's a veteran-owned business, and he gets all the money from that. Like, there's no money." I said, "Just a community group." "You're not a nonprofit?" Like, "No." You know. So what's cool is because of our network, from Salem, Oregon to Canada, Island County to Spokane, and down to the Tri-Cities. Now, actually, in Hermiston, Umatilla County, we have people are reaching out to say, "Hey, I want to be a leader of this. How do I get involved? What do I do?" And so we've been able to get all these people. So I've identified like 2 or 3 folks per county that kind of run it, but then they're all a part of other things too, with the county or the tribes or different nonprofits. So it's like last night, the guys down in or Wednesday night, the guys down in Salem, they're at Courtney's Place. It's a transitional housing unit for veterans, and they've been doing some stuff with local businesses in Team Red, White, and Blue. And the local business donated a check, and they had like a big check and some food and stuff at the PNW Vets meeting at Courtney's Place. So they're able to donate money to another organization just from the guys coming together with the veterans that are there.
Nice.
So it's like all the people are just leaders. I just find the people that do the work, you know. But it's cool.
Yeah, I think that's excellent. But that's why I say I'd have to lean back and say that PNW Vets, for you especially, is a volunteer project with an initiative.
Yeah.
I could go either way with it becoming a nonprofit, because I know there's another gentleman that I've spoken to that really wants it to be a nonprofit, But as I learned from a prior guest, there are more nonprofits in the Pacific Northwest than anywhere else in the U.S. And
Yeah.
so I do, I can see it going both ways. I just see there's a lot of work to creating a nonprofit.
Yep.
For what reason, going where. And so I like it living in the program initiative phase, just connecting people.
Yep.
But
And
that's Amy's 2 cents.
No. And I have a day job. I don't want to start a thing. I have an idea for a nonprofit, but it's for a future date. But it's interesting because that's what I'm getting my master's in public administration and government and policy. And so there's like some nonprofit work that I've done, and I just finished that class with a 99.8%. So I know a thing about it, but I don't want to do it. So because it's really about I want no barriers. I don't need to talk about contracts. I don't need to talk about money from here or there. Literally, I just want people to be friends and learn from each other and share resources, because you never know if you volunteer with this organization, well, you might actually like these people even better than this place, so come over here, and then you might like them both, and now you're going to do both things. So it's just kind of like how do you manage your time with family and all the other things, but it's great.
Right, and I think it's like, and I'll use an example like the Mission Continues. I think is a fabulous organization, and I've done things from time to time with them, but their mission isn't what I'm passionate about.
Yeah.
So I can absolutely connect people to it, support it once in a while, value it just as much as anything else, but it's not where you'll find me if I'm volunteering so much, unless I'm supporting Wes or some big project or something that just my buddy needs help with.
The Mission Continues. That was the first thing I did when I got kind of involved in volunteering after the military. So it was like Iraq and Afghanistan Veterans of America. It was before that, like that time was like 2015 or so, 14, 15. And then I think it was in 2016-ish. Lee was a Mission Continues fellow at RP6 in Lakewood. And then he went from being Lee was the Mission Continues fellow there. And then he went out and did some work with the Veteran Conservation Corps out at the Ording Soldiers Home farm. And so like our Mission Continues platoon was a small group of people that have now, I think maybe like 4 or 5 of them probably have their own nonprofits and like doing things in the community. But it was our little group out there shoveling dirt and how are we going to get this off of these wheels? Like trying to set office buildings, and we don't have any idea about what we're doing. But it was the Mission Continues so many years ago that a lot of the people that are still connected to this day were out there doing that work then. So
yeah. Well, and I think
cool.
that's the point. Like, we can have wonderful organizations, and just because it's not what floats my boat doesn't mean that boats don't float.
Yeah.
You know, and I think I refer people well there who I like gardening, who are interested in their initiatives. I love, all the restoration, different things like that. It's just not my jam. I love the kids. So, the Travis Manion Foundation, working with kid programs, different things like that, that's where my passion and purpose lie. Yeah. And also mental health space, so merging vets and players and different things like that, and making sure people are healthy and engaging, and exercise, youth, and mental health. That's my thing.
And that's like I signed up for Team Rubicon one time. Well, why haven't you done stuff? I said, I got this bum knee. I'm not trying to go lump out there and I don't want to do hard work. I sit in an office for a living. But I'm cool to help out for a couple hours, But that's what drew me to TMF. My wife, my mother-in-law, my sister-in-law, they're all teachers. And it feels comfortable, like this teaching atmosphere. I teach soldiers every day at work. And then Kate's a teacher, and being around, I have 2 kids. So being around the kids, it's a comfortable space, with coaching and teaching and just being able to connect with them and have that conversation. about character or whatever comes up, you know. And it's funny because my 11-year-old has taught me some things, you know, along the way. I can't wait for high school. It's going to be fun. But learning as I go too. And then since we're coming up into the Christmas holidays, it was pretty cool. Last year we did the event at the old cannery, and I met some families, and I'm friends on Facebook with them, and I see the kids doing things. So it's like cool. I hope they're there this year. You know, like
Right,
it's
yeah.
already on my calendar, and I plan to be there because it was fun for me. You know, and that's one of the things, like shoveling dirt and sod and breaking leaves is fun for some people, but also talking to families is fun for others. So
Right.
get in where you fit in. You know?
Yep. Get in where you fit in. I think that's a great segue and way. So as we finish up, think about, is there advice you would give to somebody trying to find how to fit in or where to fit in?
Yeah. And then try to not even think of like veteran specific organizations, right? There's the Elks or the Lions, the Eagles, so many different, the Masons, so many different volunteer based organizations. I think like my number one advice would be just try it out. You just got to show up. So I would say look at all the spaces where there's the possibility to do good, and then just try it out. You know, like there's no shame if you go to something and it is it's not the right fit. You know, you tried, you gave it an effort, and you want to make a change. So finding that space, you know, it's interesting. I was recently connected to the Daughters of the American Revolution.
Yeah.
And I went from a CrossFit gym and a workout straight to go talk to them about veteran things. I would never think there's Daughters of the American Revolution who give college scholarships or do historical preservation, and they're right at the Meeker Mansion in Puyallup.
Yeah.
You know, so like, just show up and try. You know, I think it's well worth my time, and I bring my family to this stuff. So, family first, helping out other families second. So, I think it's
agree.
good.
Well, I want to say thank you for your time today. Really love having you on my podcast, since this is the second podcast of mine that you've been on. So thank you for that. Thank you everyone else for your time. Again, my name is Amy Thiemeier. This is Josh Wheldon, and this is Stories of a Volunteeraholic.